The room fell strangely quiet the moment I saw her standing across the high school gym, and after 15 years, the only thing I could hear was the echo of a promise I had never kept. She smiled with the same warmth I remembered from our senior year, but there was sadness behind her eyes that time had never erased. Before I could find the courage to walk away or even say hello, she stepped closer until only a few feet separated us. Then, with a gentle smile that carried years of silence, she whispered that I still owed her that date. In that instant, every regret I had buried came rushing back. If you were standing where I stood, staring at the person who once held your entire heart, knowing life had stolen years you could never recover, would you believe fate deserved another chance, or would you convince yourself that some stories were meant to remain unfinished forever? My name is Jacob, and I grew up in a quiet town in Ohio where everyone knew each other's families, dreams, and mistakes. Back in high school, there was one person who made every ordinary day feel unforgettable. Her name was Grace. She wasn't the loudest student or the most popular girl, but kindness surrounded her like sunlight after a storm. She volunteered at church food drives, helped classmates who struggled, and somehow remembered every birthday in our class. I admired her from a distance for years, too afraid to admit that every smile she gave me stayed with me long after school ended each afternoon. During our senior spring, I finally gathered enough courage to ask Grace if she would let me take her to the county fair. To my complete surprise, she smiled and quietly agreed. It felt like the happiest moment of my young life. I spent days planning every detail, saving money from my grocery store job so I could win her a stuffed bear and buy tickets for the Ferris wheel. But 3 days before our date, everything changed. My father suffered a massive heart attack while working construction. Overnight, my world became hospital rooms, unpaid bills, and helping my mother keep our family together. I never called Grace. I never explained. I simply disappeared from school until graduation, carrying guilt that seemed impossible to overcome. Life moved forward the way rivers always do, even when people wish they could stop the current. I skipped college and worked full-time to support my family after my father's health left him unable to return to construction. Years passed in long shifts, endless overtime, and responsibilities that left little room for dreams. My parents eventually found stability again, but by then I had forgotten how to chase happiness for myself. I watched friends marry, raise children, and build careers while convincing myself that sacrifice was simply the life I had been given. Every now and then, I wondered where Grace had gone, but I never searched. Part of me believed I had already hurt her enough. When the invitation for our 15-year reunion arrived, I nearly threw it away. Spending an evening surrounded by memories felt like reopening wounds that had finally become quiet. Still, something deep inside urged me to go. Maybe I needed closure. Maybe I simply wanted to see who we had all become. Walking into the decorated gymnasium felt like stepping through time. Old banners still hung from the walls, faded class photos lined the entrance, and familiar songs floated through the speakers. Everyone looked older, but their laughter sounded exactly the same. I stayed near the refreshment table, smiling politely while classmates shared stories about careers and families. I felt out of place among conversations filled with success. Then I saw Grace. She looked different, of course. Her hair was shorter, a few silver strands shimmered beneath the lights, and life had left gentle lines around her eyes. Yet her kindness remained untouched. She carried herself with quiet strength, greeting every classmate as though no time had passed. When her eyes finally met mine, she smiled before slowly walking across the room. She admitted she had recognized me the moment I entered, and then came the sentence that stopped my heart. She softly reminded me that I still owed her that date. Instead of anger, there was forgiveness in her voice. She explained that she had waited at the fair all those years ago for nearly 3 hours, believing something terrible must have happened because she knew I wasn't the kind of person who would simply disappear. Eventually she learned about my father's illness from another classmate. She understood why I never came, but she always wished I had trusted her enough to tell her. Those words broke something inside me. For 15 years I had believed I had destroyed any chance of being forgiven. Instead, I discovered she had never been angry. She had only been sad that I carried everything alone. Grace shared that life had not been easy for her either. She married young, hoping love could fix two broken people. Instead, the marriage became filled with disappointment and loneliness before ending quietly several years earlier. Since then she had devoted herself to caring for children recovering from serious illnesses at a children's hospital, finding purpose in helping families survive their darkest days. As the evening continued, we talked like two people trying to recover pages torn from the same book. We laughed about teachers who terrified us, remembered football games under cold Friday night skies, and confessed how uncertain adulthood had truly become. For the first time in years, I didn't feel ashamed of the path my life had taken. Grace never measured people by titles or salaries. She saw the years I spent caring for my family not as failure, but as love in its purest form. A week later, we finally had the date that should have happened 15 years before. There was no county fair this time. Instead, we walked through a peaceful park beside a small lake in Indiana where the autumn leaves painted the water with shades of red and orange. We shared coffee, watched children feed ducks, and spoke honestly about regrets neither of us could erase. Neither of us pretended the lost years hadn't mattered. They did. But they also taught us compassion, patience, and the courage to begin again even when life seemed determined to move on without us. Months slowly became a year. We learned that love after heartbreak feels different from the excitement of youth. It grows quietly through ordinary moments. It appears while grocery shopping together, visiting aging parents, volunteering on weekends, or simply sitting on a porch watching the sunset without needing to fill every silence. The promise we almost lost became stronger because both of us finally understood how fragile time truly is. Sometimes I still think about that frightened 18-year-old boy who believed disappearing was kinder than admitting he needed help. I wish I could tell him that real love does not run from hardship. It walks through it together. Missing one date nearly cost us a lifetime, but forgiveness built a bridge that regret never could. Our reunion wasn't just about seeing old classmates. It became proof that some promises survive longer than we ever imagine, waiting patiently until two wounded hearts are finally ready to keep them. Before the story ends, tell us in the comments, have you ever been given a second chance by someone you thought you'd lost forever? Grace often reminds me that the date I owed her was never really about the fair or the Ferris wheel. It was about choosing each other when life finally gave us another opportunity. And every ordinary day we spend together now feels like the ending neither of us believed we deserved, reminding us that kindness, forgiveness, and hope can quietly rewrite even the oldest regrets. If this story truly touched your heart, please like, comment, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe for more emotional stories that remind us hope is never truly lost.